Good afternoon, Mami Larda. Good afternoon, classmates. I am Giffemy and Oculam together with Alfred Wacay. We are DASAR reporters for the Good Governance and Social Responsibility subject. So today, we are going to discuss about the topic 1, which is about governance. So, let's start. Okay, so let's start by this question. So what is governance? So is it about the process, planning, or deciding how things should be done? So you have a lot of perception about this term. So throughout our discussion, you will be introduced to the concept of governance, definitions of governance, theories of governance, art of governance, and so on. So this topic will be the first part or the first leg of the module. So we have 10 specific objectives for this topic. So here are the specific objectives. And the other specific objectives. Okay, so now let's proceed to the concept of governance. So according to the Institute on Governance, or IOG, governance is how the society organizes to make decisions. Well, government is an institution or a system that is made up of the group of people to take care, to lead, or to manage a country or a state or a nation. So somehow they have similarities, and there are people who use them in the same manner. That's why they are interchangeably used, because they are both implying exercising the authority towards a country, a state, a place, or a nation. So who has the authority or the power for that authority? Of course, it's the government, because the government consists of fundamental principles to ensure effective governance. Okay, so authority can most simply define as legitimate power. So who has that legitimate power? How do you get that legitimate power? Of course, an individual can earn that legitimate power by having the higher position or a higher position on the organization. For example, being the manager, being the president, being the boss, being the leader, like that. So, power is the ability to influence the behavior of others. So, power is the ability to get things done. So, the people with power can influence the behavior of others in order to achieve a goal or objective. So that's why we have leaders. We can have someone to lead or to guide us. So for example, if someone will give you a random task, would you follow it without hesitation? So of course, no. But if someone who has the authority, who has the power, would give you an order, you would do it or you would follow it, because you know they have the legitimate power, they have the authority, they are capable. So let's proceed. Here is the sociologist and political economist Max Weber. So according to him, there are 3 kinds of authority. So the first one is traditional authority, which is rooted in history. So this traditional authority has the presence of a dominant personality. They have the presence of dominant personality, and they are dependent on the established traditions or orders. The next one, or the second one, is the charismatic authority. It stems from the personality. So they possess the superior power, or they possess the traits of being extraordinary. They're not just capable, but they possess the superior power of being charismatic. So the third one is the legal authority, which is grounded in a set of impersonal rules. So they are based on the clearly defined laws.
So according to Haywood, studying the government is also the same with studying the exercise of authority. It is because the both of them deals with leading and regulating laws for the country or nation. For example, you run for the senatorial elections and you won because the people voted for you, they supported you. And since you are in the position, you now have the ability to plan and implement laws for the people. So while you are familiarizing yourself with the government, you also learn how to use that authority correctly. So government is closely related to politics, and politics is the art of government. So why? It's because politics existed because of the government. The need for an individual to lead, the need for the people to exercise the authority. Government is also the reason why we have elections. It's because we have to select eligible politicians. Politics is also forbidden for those that we call state actors or people who doesn't have the formal power. Because when you enter the field of politics, you're always behind serving the people, protecting the people, and not for any personal reasons. When you're a politician, you should not be motivated by ideological beliefs because you have to be open. You have to be understanding in the different cultures and traditions of the people. Entering politics shouldn't be an excuse for supporting political organizations where they influence the decisions of the public officials. That is why politicians is considered as political or described as political because they are related to the government or public affairs. While civil servants are seen as non-political because they serve the people because they are employed by the government or department or agencies without political agendas. So state as public because they are under the system of the governance. And civil society as private since they are not affiliated from the government. So the institutions of the state can be regarded as public in the sense that they are responsible for the collective organization of the community life. So what are these institutions? It is the apparatus of the government, police, army, society security system, and many more. So they are funded by the public expense out of the taxation or from the taxes of the people. Civil society, on the other hand, it is composed of families, kinship groups, private businesses, clubs, groups, unions, which is funded by individual citizens. So Raymond Burke called it little platoons because according to him, family is the origin of the little platoon you belong in society. So governance is a broader term or wider term compared to government. It also refers to the various ways in which social life is coordinated. So governance can refer to different deals, different concepts. For example, in our homes or in our house, our parents, elders, they have the authority. In the companies, the CEO, presidents, they have the authority. While in businesses, the owners, the managers have the authority. Unlike the government, which is huge but won't function without governance. So you don't have to be a politician. It is not required to be a politician just to have the authority for governance. And government is a part of governance, but governance has a bigger role to the government. Up next is governance, varying definitions. The first one is Kaufman and others. They define governance as the traditions and institutions by which authority in a country is exercised. So governance consists of the tradition, which refers to the structure and the system, together with the foundation, organizations, institutions, who has the power to lead a country. The World Bank PRSP handbook also have their definition. So PRSP, or the Poverty Reduction Strategy paper, was formulated by the poor countries to implement strategies in order to reduce poverty. So according to them, governance is a way on how power is fulfilled through the country's economic institution, which is related to the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. While political institutions that create, enforce, and apply laws, and social institutions that is focused on meeting the social needs. So according to the country governance assessment, it is the sound exercise of the political, economic, and administrative authority to manage a country's resources for development. And the UNDP, or the United Nations Development Program, defined governance as a performance of the economic, political, and administrative authority that is referring to agencies that adopts and enforces regulation and guidelines in order to manage the welfare of the country. For the United States Agency for International Development, or the USAID, it's about the government's ability to respond to the needs of the citizen or how they are going to protect the rights of the people. It is more on developing efficient, effective, and accountable public management process. Serving the public, being transparent, and strengthens the government. So another definition, again by the UNDP, governance is a process on how the authority operates the country, the nations, or groups. Now, according to the Birmingham City Council, it's about the collaboration of the systems, processes, procedures that helps navigate the whole organization. Now, for the World Bank, for them, governance is about establishing the fairness, well-being, transparency, by being honest, and accountability, by being committed to your work, taking responsibilities for your actions, ethical, and many more. Okay, so the OECD, or Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, define governance as the same with how the corporate governance define it. So it's a system by which businesses, organizations are directed and controlled. So meaning the board of the director are the one who's responsible for the governance of the companies. So according to the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, this is a way to test and enhance the ability of a leader towards the nation, particularly with the issues dealing with the community, resources, or finances. Another definition by the ADB, governance is about the institutional environment. So what do you mean by the institutional environment? These are the values and norms in the environment that governs the behavior of the whole organization. The citizens work jointly with the people and the government agencies with the government officials. Okay, so governance is also about making decisions that are later on implemented or not implemented. So governance can be used in several contexts, such as corporate governance, which is a system of rules, practices, and processes that are used by a corporation to direct and control its actions. So number 2 is the international governance. It's a movement towards the political cooperation among transnational actors aimed at negotiating responses to the problems that affect more than one state or one region. Okay, so the third one is national governance. So it is the government or political authority that controls a nation. So the fourth one, last one, is the local governance that generally act within powers delegated to them by the legislation or directives of the higher level of the government. Now, according to the Institute on Governance, or IOG, it deals about the power, relationship, and accountability, who has the influence, who will decide, and how the decision makers are held accountable. Now, NEDA, or the National Economic and Development Authority, is somehow similar with how UNDP define governance. But NEDA points that governance is not the exceptional field of the government, but it actually exceeds the government to encompass or surround the business sectors and the civil society. So the Institute on Governance, or IOG, gave another definition, wherein it is a process where the societies and organizations create important decisions, determine who has the voice, who is engaged in the process, and how account is rendered. So, as you can see in the slide, this is the first figure. So, it is one of the necessary actors in governance. So, it refers to the process by which a person or a group arrive at a decision involving their individual and communal needs and wants. So, what am I referring to? It's the decision making. Again, it's the central component of the governance. Okay, so this is the second figure. As you can see, we now have stakeholders and input. So the decision will come from the stakeholders. So who are these stakeholders? They could be an individual, group, or organization who has the authority to do so. So they will be the one who's in charge of the decision-making process. While the input, as you can see, we have the input here. They are the reasons or the factors for the decision-making process. Okay, so now the third figure illustrates that after the stakeholders made their decisions together with the input, the arrow from the decision-making process is now pointing back towards the stakeholders, since they are the one who's liable and responsible to the results of their decisions. Okay, now, so let's proceed to governance according to UNDP, or the United Nations Development Program. So governance itself is difficult, but establishing a governance that promotes, supports, and can maintain a sustainable human development is more challenging, especially for the poor and weak. Okay, so what are the indicators of a good governance? The first one is the participation, or participatory. It's having active involvement of all affected and interested parties in the decision-making process. Second is being transparent. It means that the people are open to information regarding decision-making process and the implementation. Information on matters of public concern are made available to the citizens or to those who will be affected by it. When there is a transparency, people are placed in a better position to know and protect their rights. The third is accountable, or accountability. It means responsibility for one's action. It is based on the principle that every person or group is responsible for their own actions, most especially if their acts can affect the public interest. So next is effective and equitable, or being effective and being equitable. Good governance requires that the institutions, processes, and actors could deliver and meet the necessities of the society in a way that available resources are well utilized. When the different actors meet the needs of the society, it means that there is effective governance. It should have social equity, That refers to a kind of justice that gives more opportunity to the less fortunate members of the society. It is based on the principle that those who have less in life should have more in law. The fifth one is that it should promote the rule of law. It demands that the government acts within the limits of the power and functions authorized by the law. The sixth one, or the last, is being consensus-oriented, where decisions are made after taking into consideration the different viewpoints of the actor of the society. Okay, so the governance has three legs. Number one is economic governance. So decision-making processes that affect a country's economic activities and its relationship with other economies. So it supports economic activity and economic transactions by protecting the property rights, enforcing contracts, and taking collective action to provide physical and organizational infrastructure. Number two is the political governance. So it's the process of decision-making to formulate policy. This is the process of the decision-making of the people who have the authority to formulate different policies or necessary policies. Number three is the administrative governance. So it's a system of policy implementation. They manage or supervise the execution of the policies. They make sure that the decision made by the governance is effectively implemented. The governance is included in state or managed by the state. Private sectors and civil society is attached to the state. But until now, there are debates or arguments on the range of governance. Because when it comes to state, it is more on private sectors, private organizations, or private industries, and the government cannot intervene with them since they conduct activities and projects which is separate from the government.
What does good governance mean? Before we can improve local government, we need to agree on what good governance is. Effectiveness. We expect government to achieve results and use resources wisely. Police patrol, trash gets picked up, and potholes are repaired without wasting money. Equity. Government policy should benefit all of us, not just the majority or elite. To promote economic, racial, and gender equity, government can support programs that consider our unique circumstances and perspectives, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. Strategic vision. Public officials should take a long-term perspective, like planning cost-effective infrastructure upgrades that improve safety and reduce traffic congestion over 20 years, rather than just focusing on today's needs. Transparency. We should be able to see why and how government makes decisions, like having access to explanations about government votes, policies, budgets, and campaign finance information. Accountability. Public officials should do what they promise, explain their decisions, and be held responsible for consequences without spinning facts. Like keeping officials accountable using budget audits, program evaluations, and ethics committees. Participation. We should all have a voice in public decisions, even if we're not well connected or don't shout the loudest. Like listening to our concerns and aspirations through voting, public meetings, and comments. Consensus orientation. Government should work with different interests to find common ground and solutions that work for everyone. like talking with residents, police, ex-offenders, researchers, and political leaders to solve complicated issues of public safety and incarceration. Trust. We should be able to trust that our public officials are working in our best interests. For example, when government enters a contract that's not the lowest bid, we can trust that it's for a good reason, like the contractor does quality work or pays fair wages. We need to be able to trust public officials to prioritize our interests over their own. When we talk about good governance, we mean, do you agree? Would you add any others, or is one more important to you than others? What does good governance mean to you?